Hello, and welcome to the show. This is just a short intro before we begin the episode, which I'm sure you will enjoy. We have a few things to share which are specials this weekend. If you're a writer and love the process and inspiration of writing on a classic typewriter, you can experience this magic opportunity by purchasing your very own typewriter. We do also have vintage or antique typewriters. Or if you already have a typewriter and it's broken, we are able to repair it so that your writing process can be that much more beautiful and enjoyable. Whether you're sitting at home or a cafe or traveling the world, you can now be motivated to write anywhere, anytime. Next, staying on the topic of writing. If you would like to purchase my phone book, they are now published and available. The Narcissist Recovery Guidebook, as well as the Grand Soul Awakening calendar collection of inner child poems on friendship and healing, as well as Divine Love Lessons, a poetic love story of returning back to your core self and a human journey of understanding your higher calling, which has a touch of synchronicity, numerology, ascension patterns, spiritual insights to soothe the consciousness and support the ego into pure, authentic soulhood. And it's a great gift for yourself or for a friend who appreciates the art of poetry and story. Next, you can order the personalized art painting, which is perfect for birthday gifts and holidays. And it's just a great opportunity to become creative and to inspire like younger generation or adults as well. And you can also decide which kind of art this is, which can be seasonal or biblical or a Disney character. So it's really anything that inner child find for. Next, tutoring is also available from grade school to middle school to high school to English courses. We have both the math, reading, writing, essay help, resume help, college admissions, essay help, all kinds of tutoring. Last but not least, we have virtual ballet lessons and classes available for all ages and all levels. There are ballet bar workouts included, and all you need is just a little bit of space and a chair or something to hold on to. And this is going to be with accompanying classical orchestra music to bring a sense of levity and joy and just fun overall, while also strengthening the body and adding flexibility and grace to your daily posture. And I have a unique experience as I grew up performing at an infant center with the York City Ballet, with my City Ballet, with Alvin, Ailey, American Dance Theater, and also at Madison Square Garden. So this unique mix of artistic expression has inspired me to create a whole list of ballet choreography, ballet classes, and to inspire people to come along on the journey to awaken their appreciation and their gratitude for body movement and body positivity. And I'm excited to share this with everybody, and everybody is open to join. It's available for everybody. And we focus on creating elegant movement to the rhythm of the music, which makes you feel comfortable in your own space, at your own pace, and in your own skin. And this gives you an opportunity to enjoy the journey of imagination, beauty, integration, and for you, a sense of gratitude for yourself, for others, for music, and for movement. Classes are in session and all are. And if you would like to have me on as a guest on your podcast and would like to be a guest on my podcast, please do let me know. And I am also collecting new interviews with upcoming. And for information on any of the things that I have mentioned, if you would like to participate in, or to purchase, or to just join the community, please send me an email at growthandgracemindset@gmail.com. I put all of the logistics are on Great. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Gratitude podcast, where we talk about all things healing, mental health, entrepreneurship, wellness, growth. And today we have a special guest, Dr. Heath, and he's the host of Therapy Bites. He is a neuromechanic for over 30 years, and he's inspiring people to help them to understand the mental state and the mysteries of the mind through cognitive science. So thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a great conversation.
Yes, it's so exciting. I love talking about all these things about mental health, and especially a lot of people are actually tuning into that whole field of healing and recovery and just bettering themselves. So I feel like it's a great topic to get into. And it's such an interesting alignment because today is actually a National Dance Movement Therapy Advocacy Day. And like for me personally, I grew up in the dance world. And for me, that is my mental health. And it's like when I was able to connect with the music of ballroom or ballet, and I was able to move my body along with the rhythm. And it just felt like such a great reminder to connect back to ourselves. And I feel like these days it is so hard to connect back to ourselves because there's so much chaos around, whether it's in our schools or at our jobs or in personal relationships. We kind of do lose our way sometimes. And how do you think it's a great way to kind of take a step back and reprioritize that kind of mental state for us?
Well, one of the first things that I learned when I got out of grad school and became a consultant with a focus in long-term care is a study that came out that said if you will get the elderly out for just 3 times a week, 3 days a week, for about 20 minutes at a time, that can have a wonderful impact on increasing their cognitive abilities. And so you can really look at neurons as a bit of a widget or as a bit of a tool in the toolbox, your cognitive toolbox. So I grew up building things with my dad. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting in front of a pool that me, my son, and my wife built. So
Wow.
lots and lots of tools. But those tools, if you leave them in the toolbox, they tend to get kind of rusty. And neurons are much like tools that get rusty in the toolbox. So you actually have a somatosensory cortex and a motor cortex filled with those tools. And so when you move your body, you're really exercising those tools, knocking off the rust, lubricating the joints of the neurons, and that really has a wonderful impact on your cognitive abilities through life. And so people that don't do that, they tend to decline in, well, all kinds of things, including procedural memory, do this thing, that thing, the other thing, and task segmentation and verbal fluency. And so when we get out and move, the other thing that's cool about it is when we have, well, if you're in the biking world, I guess it's called a peloton. When you have a group of people, not the company, but a group of people that join together to do the same thing, like walk together, because when we walk together, we often talk. When I bike ride with my son, we talk. When I walk with my wife or do yard work with her, we talk. And so really we're also exercising those verbal skills that live here and here, more here if you're right-handed, more here if you're left-handed, but they're kind of diffused across both hemispheres. And so really, yes, move, move, move. The other thing when moving is that Aaron Beck found in his research, by the way, Aaron Beck, I met him at one of his 90th birthday celebrations. He's passed away now. He lived to the age 100. He found that one of the key factors with depression was behavioral deactivation. So it's really paired together. And the thing that keeps depression going is behavioral deactivation, slowing down or stopping or holding up in a bedroom. And so when I get to some of my lowest moments, what I do is I move, move, move. It makes all the difference in the world.
That's beautiful. Yes, it's such a reminder for us. And I like how also you mentioned the purpose of community. It's so important that sometimes when we do go through kind of periods of depression, we feel extra isolated. And I feel like sometimes we do have to work on pushing ourselves a little bit to get out of that kind of comfort zone and seek out that community that is going to help support you just to be happier even. You don't even have to like think about impressing anybody, but just like connecting with people, like-minded people that are on the same journey as you, or just on the same kind of level of appreciating each other. I think I've also learned this that before when I felt like it's okay, I can do everything by myself, it's totally cool, but then I realized that having people to connect with, how actually
Mm.
important that is. And I feel like a lot of younger people might not like be aware of that, or they might want to be the loner and think it's cool or it's spiritually cool. And maybe it's true there is a point when spiritually you want to be a little bit secluded because you're confused about your space in society or your space in the world. But it's always really important to go back out into the world and reconnect with people to feel part of the world and to feel like you're heading into a purposeful kind of realistic reality.
Well, yeah, you're right. As a matter of fact, now that you bring that up, I don't want to be an old fuddy-duddy and say that, if you're just on social media, you can't do this and you got to live in a populous area. But I had a friend of mine, Josh, who does the Innovators Think Tank, ITT. He has a great space on Saturdays as well as through the week. So he knows that I'm a runner and I will do a 5K run 3 days a week. And he sent me the most interesting text I did not expect. He really, shout out to Josh for surprising me. He said, Heath, I just want you to know that you're not running alone. You said you'd be running at this time, and I want you to know I'm running at this time too. Now, Josh ran much farther than I did. So here's a recommendation, an actionable recommendation for your listeners. And that is develop a group of people that you can commit to each other to doing some type of activity at the same time. And also, by the way, on X, now with the advent of X phone calls, you can actually be on an X call while you're getting what I call green therapy, getting out in nature. When I was a kid in Nashville, Tennessee, uh, after church on the weekends, we would get together and take a nature walk. You can take a nature walk with your friends in your headset. So do that. What I call yellow therapy. I'm going to get up in the sunshine in the morning, get a group of people on the phone, and take a walk with them. By the way, don't drive while you're doing this. That's just dangerous. And also blue therapy. One of the reasons I built the pool, by the way, my patients and I do therapy poolside, weather permitting, every day. And so that's a great benefit. But there's a lot of research that exposing yourself to water, exposing your mind to water through the conduits of the eyeballs is a really, really mentally healthy thing to do. And it doesn't have to be a big pool, but you can find a city pool, a lake, a stream, a pond, or something like that, a river, or the ocean, if you're lucky enough to live by the ocean, and spend time by your water in even just small doses, maybe 20, 30 minutes 2 to 3 times a week by water is like hydrotherapy for the brain.
Wow, that is so amazing. It's true. The water is so like magical, and there's like first there's a resistance to it, so it's like for the body it's healthy like that, and then how it absorbs to the body, especially like you mentioned the ocean water and the salts and the healing properties. Yeah, it's very beautiful, and I feel like many of us even are aware of the healing properties, and so many people actually grew up around the ocean, like my friends, and some people don't even want to go in the ocean because they have no idea of the healing properties of it. So I feel like, yeah, it's very important to realize that and to become aware of, like you mentioned, nature therapy, the water therapy, and water is also very healing with astrology. Even it's like the water is all about nurturing the cell, the soul, there's also so many aspects to that as well. It's a great contribution to mental health support for sure.
Yeah, well, we're born of water. Uh, if you're a believer, you're baptized in water. As a human, you're mostly made of water. You're around water. Here in Arkansas, goodness, the humidity is 50, 60%. So, high humidity, that's full of water. And so be around water, and it doesn't have to be something big if you don't have physical access to it. Actually, there are wonderful, in this day and age, graphics and videos and things like that. But one thing I want to reiterate, and that is don't keep it to yourself. Um, it's really kind of, a double decker thing, I might say. So accountability and just being a good example. And so accountability is tell people what you're doing. Tell people what you're going to do. I am going to get out tomorrow morning and, walk or run or whatever, bike or swim or something. Or I'm going to go beside the lake. Or I'm going to sit and meditate in front of a video of water. So advertise to people what you're doing because that keeps you accountable. The second thing is it's just a good example for other people to know that you're on the same journey. But I have a warning, and it's a very serious warning that most people don't understand. You actually have a pathway in the brain that pays attention to whether you keep your commitments to yourself or not. So if you don't keep your commitments, you get better and better and better at not keeping your commitments. You actually get to be an expert at fibbing to yourself. So don't do that. It's actually called the mesolimbic pathway. So when you make a commitment, it is so essential. Just do it. You might say, well, I don't feel good. Well, at least you're feeling. So get up and do it. You might say, but I don't want to do it. Well, I think that's spectacular. There's all kinds of things I don't want to do. So the thing that I do first is I, of course, get up and do it. I might want to put it off, but instead of putting it off, I get up and do it. The first thing I do, and I make a commitment to myself, no matter what's going on, the presence of a non-preferred emotion or the absence of a preferred emotion is I just get up and get moving. I move, move, move.
Amazing. That's such a great quality to have, and I feel like we all aspire to be like that because I feel like so many times we are kind of not accountable for ourselves, and it's almost like we're encouraged to betray others and then betray ourselves. And there's this kind of like narcissistic obsession with having self-love, but actually so often that self-love is kind of disguised as self-obsession and self-isolation and tuning out the world. So I feel like, yes, it's such an important part of having that accountability and becoming aware of what you say and what you affirm, because that leads to manifestation. So having that integrity is super important, and to kind of go along with your words. And in the long run, when people do say something and they kind of betray themselves, that also leads into even more trauma for themselves, because then they start to have shame, they have guilt, they have different layers of kind of like trauma that they're going to have to deal with later on. So I think it's a beautiful point that you mentioned, that it's so important to have that integrity and accountability with yourself to keep the mental health at peace.
Well, yeah, your brain keeps track. It actually keeps a tally of how often you keep your word to yourself or break your word to yourself. And the other thing I'll share comes from Stephen Covey. I used to go around the country. I was a Seven Habits trainer, and I got trained by Stephen Covey himself. I was in the group that he stood right over there, so to speak. And I remember him saying his book is a classic, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And I remember him asking us, he said, have you ever been too busy driving to stop and get gas? Wow, what a simple way to explain a complex topic. And most people would not think it's selfish. Oh, I'm so sorry, forgive me. I must stop and put, diesel in my truck or something. Forgive me. I'm a horrible person. But we think that it's selfish for, fueling up our tank as humans. And so I encourage people to have a time to get up pretty much no matter what, have a time to go to bed pretty much no matter what, have a bedtime routine no matter what, uh, have adequate hydration. And we talked about water earlier, but most people are not dehydrated, but so many are suboptimally hydrated. And imagine being that over a lifetime, those little increments of suboptimal hydration really build up and are very negative things for what goes on in the brain. And so the point I'm making is drink plenty of water that is non-caloric liquid, and you can find a hydration calculator on the internet. Find a good hydration calculator. It's a calculation between body weight, caloric intake, activity level, and run the numbers through it, and then follow that every day. Mine is about a gallon and a quarter a day, and hydrate, and then sleep hygiene. Uh, uh, a lot of people really, I heard actually a patient of mine, a physician, who shared with me the term sleep procrastination and revenge insomnia, which I think are such fun terms with really disastrous effects. And so with revenge insomnia, instead of keeping our appointment, that is making and keeping our commitment for bedtime, we'll set up and binge on social media or a TV show or something like that. But it really needs to be an appointment for bedtime. And then in the morning, we need to get up no matter what. Now, that's a really hard thing to do, but you're really buying yourself more trouble and more brain fog when you delay getting out of bed. Your brain wants to reset into a great sleep pattern. So same bedtime every night, same wake up time every day, no matter how you sleep. And over time, your brain will reset and get you back in those nice circadian rhythms.
Perfect. Yes, I love that. It's so true. And I feel like everybody should kind of go back to their inner child, their childhood, where they did feel kind of a sense of routine and to pick up those different things that make them feel more relaxed. Like I personally love having a green tea every morning. And it's like I stay with that routine because it feels good and it calms me down. So I feel like there's so many different kind of things you can pick up on. Sometimes people love having like a bag of nuts during their work break or something like that. Those small healthy habits will really like add up, and it's going to make a great impact to your energy, to your physical well-being, your mental well-being. Yes, I totally agree. And I also was listening to an interview you did, and you mentioned how you enjoy I think it was like apple cinnamon tea, and that's so cinnamon is also so great because it has so many healing qualities. It boosts metabolism, it's antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. So I feel like there's so many herbs and different kinds of holistic, healthier choices that a lot of people aren't even like fully aware of or even are not even learning about. So I feel like that's also a really great kind of addition to your overall lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it is important to treat yourself and to do some type of reward system schedule. Uh, I think a very effective reward system is some type of random reward system. And so I will randomly, intermittently reward myself. Well, I just finished a nice caramel mocha yin yang coffee, which is half tea, half coffee, with a tad of nice creamer in it, topped with a little bit of whipped cream, sugar-free chocolate, sugar-free caramel. And so it's just my thing. I don't need anything big or expensive or outlandish or fancy or world class. And so, yes, find ways to treat yourself. And one of my favorite things to do at bedtime, part of my bedtime routine, is a nice herbal tea. No caffeine, just a nice warm cup of herbal tea, and I'm good to go. And so I keep the same bedtime routine every evening. Why is that? Well, for the same reason that I keep the same furniture arrangement in my living room. Uh, my brain knows where those things are. It knows where the couch is and the ottoman and things like that. And so when it comes to sleep, your brain really gets prepared based on how you furnish your evening, your pre-sleep activities before going to bed. And so don't change it up. Don't stare at screens like this. Don't be on social media unless you're listening to a space, to a headset where you don't have to look at the screen and your eyes consume the blue light, which activates some particular neurons, one of which is called a orexinergic neuron, which is there to wake you up. Why would you feed your brain things to wake you up when you're wanting it to go to sleep? And so I start turning the lights down about an hour ahead of bedtime. Uh, I don't eat heavy meals. I don't watch action adventure TV shows. I don't watch the TV in the bedroom. Uh, and I'm really preparing my mind for sleep. So holistic health, people don't think of it that way because they think of, I don't know, uh, maybe a lot of kind of woo-woo things. But holistic health for me is exercise, sleep hygiene, healthy foods, healthy nutrition, resistance training, so I lift heavy things uh, within reason so as not to hurt myself, cardio, and those other three types of meditations, I call it, which is uh, yellow mindfulness meditation, the sun, green mindfulness meditation, nature, and blue mindfulness meditation, water.
Beautiful. That's so amazing. And I like how all of these things that we're doing, this leads us to become our most authentic self because I feel like we are collectively in an existential crisis of authenticity. And we don't know how to be authentic anymore because there's such an easy way to impress people. And there's all these different kinds of arguments of like you do greed versus kindness, or it's like how can we find our authenticity without being hedonistic? That's the argument of service to self or service to others. It's kind of like a hierarchy of finding that scientific soul truth, and I actually found a few sentences from a quantitative analytical German chemist, Carl Remigius Fresenius, and he said, knowledge and ability must be combined with ambition as well as with the sense of honesty and a severe conscience. Every analyst occasionally has doubts about the accuracy of his results, and also there are times when he knows his results to be incorrect. Sometimes if you drop the solution was spilt or some other slight mistake made. In these cases, it requires a strong conscience to repeat the analysis and to make a rough estimate of the loss or apply a correction. Anyone not having sufficient willpower to do this is unsuited to analysis no matter how great his technical ability or knowledge. A chemist who would not take an oath guaranteeing the authenticity as well as the accuracy of his work should never publish his results. For if he were to do so, then the results will be detrimental not only to himself, but to the whole of science. And when I read that, I was so I never saw authenticity from the perspective of science and chemistry. And it's so interesting that actually the true core of our soul authenticity does require a certain amount of, like we mentioned before, integrity. And that does mean we have to be honorable. It's almost like a biblical kind of thing. If we're able to be authentic, we have to be true to ourselves and we have to be mirroring kind of the universe around us as to not delude people, as to not manipulate people. So it's such, I feel it's like a brilliant opportunity for us that it's kind of like our responsibility to be truly authentic, and it's a very unique journey, which you.
Well, you know, Nietzsche, I think, would call it existential courage. Uh, I think Sartre would chime in there. Maybe that was his term, but I think he got that from Nietzsche. And that really is deciding who you are, you know, your character, based on your values. And that's what you bring to the party of every interaction. So I say party because a party is really where two or more gather together. You know, you, me, and somebody else. So it's not them that has the power to determine who I am, what I think, what I choose. Uh, Sartre would call that acting in bad faith. You know, blaming everybody else for what I'm doing or what I'm thinking or some emotion I'm having. We really bring all that to the party of two or more people, and that flows out of our character. And so, existential courage is remaining you, the genuine you, no matter what is going on around you in the world. Because as an old minister said, and one of my favorite quotes is, you know, your who you are comes up in the bucket. You know, your character draws from, or who you are in the moment draws from your well of character. I like to say to my own patients, or ask them, how often do you shoplift when you go to Walmart? Well, they'll say, well, never. Well, why not? It's cheaper. You know, don't get caught on camera. You know, be sneaky about it. And I'll say, well, why don't you shoplift? And they'll say, well, because I don't want to go to jail. Well, yeah, but I think there's something deeper. And we finally get down to they say, because I'm not a thief. Okay, see, that's important. At what moment did you decide you're not a thief? Did you have to wait to get to Walmart and decide at that moment you're not a thief, or did you decide a long time ago? So what I like to share with people is decide way in advance of any difficult situation who you are, because what you decide, that is what you will bring to that situation. That's what's going to come up from the well of your character in the most challenging of situations. And so being genuine is staying true, staying faithful to that.
That's beautiful. 100% agree. And it's like the process and the journey of our authenticity. It's kind of like figuring out to identify those elements in our psyche. And sometimes those elements are conscious, sometimes they're unconscious. Sometimes the things are known, sometimes things are unknown, because our nervous system sometimes just reacts to things and triggers, and we have kind of no ability to control it. So at the end of the day, it is important to kind of go back to that kind of like you mentioned, the part of the commandments, which is also interesting because I think yesterday was Shabbat, the holiday where it's all about kind of connecting with the commandments and gaining that access to the covenants. And I feel like it's such a great reminder for us to kind of have that vow renewal with ourselves, our physical body, our spiritual self. It's kind of like that reminder, what laws are we following? What divine laws do we feel give us the clarity to keep living our life aligned with our higher self and our present self and our physical self? It's like there's so many elements to us, and it's a beautiful, complicated journey that I feel like so many of us are just trying to get by and trying to be the best that we can.
Well, yeah, and the one thing that I'd like to leave your listeners with that I recommend bringing to every situation that so few, especially on social media, do is not their political platform, not their hopes, habits, hang-ups, not uh, even some, you know, dogma or belief system, but you'll never lose bringing your humanity to the situation. And, and once you get really good at doing that, you look around and you see, wow, there's really no threats to me here, especially on social media. Now, I'm not talking if you live in a war-torn zone or something like that. I'm talking about the people that are privileged to live in a first world country. We've tended to look around and think that everybody that disagrees with us is a threat. That if I'm anxious, that my anxiety is a threat to me. That if I don't speak well, that me getting my words mixed up is a threat to me. That someone criticizing me is a threat to me. But see, if you see the great value in just being a human, and again, as Sartre would say, acting in good faith, you realize that if you're in an interview like this, if I forget what I'm saying, that's my brain being human. If I say something that doesn't make sense, maybe I didn't put it together well enough, that's my brain struggling to connect with you and to say things in a way that we can have a conversation about it. I'm sitting out here, it's probably nearly 90 degrees, the humidity's high, my forehead is sweating. Well, that's me being human. Viktor Frankl one time had a resident psychiatrist that said, Dr. Frankl, I just sweat. It's so embarrassing. I talk with patients and I explain things, and I'm just drenched. It's pouring out of my armpits and off my forehead. And Frankl said, then what I want you to do the next time you have that happen is remind yourself that you sweat better than any other resident, that you're the best sweater in that room. Anywhere. You are an expert at sweating. And so what happened is, using Aaron Beck's terminology, when he started decatastrophizing being the human as, well, I can't think of the other psychologist's name up in New York, Albert Ellis, there he is, would call it awfulizing. When he stopped awfulizing being a human, life got so much easier. So I would encourage your listeners, your viewers, to embrace your humanity. Your humanity is the greatest gift you've been given. Along with that, however, does not come perfection. It does not come the absence of mistakes. Does not come being an expert world-class speaker unless you really want to work at it, or world-class golfer unless you really want to work at it. So it comes with all the foibles and fallibles of humanity, but that is a gift. And so I say, along with the sweating and the getting your tongue tapped around, or wrapped around your eye teeth and you can't see a word you're saying, all of that misunderstandings and basic communication, all of that is the gift of your humanity. And so instead of trying to run from it, let's start embracing it.
Beautiful. To give ourselves a little bit of grace. Exactly. That's such a beautiful message and closing. Thank you so much, Dr. Heath, for all of your therapy bites. I feel like this was a great conversation, and so many of the listeners will be inspired to take those simple but so crucial action steps towards bettering their authenticity, their sense of mental health, and just, I feel like, overall happiness and joy within their lives. Where can people connect with you and see your contents?
Yeah, on X, I'm at therapy_bites, BITS. We're taking a bite out of therapy, talking about psychology in some unconventional ways and getting crumbs on the proverbial therapy couch. I do a midday mindset, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, U.S. That's Chicago, Memphis time. Everybody join in. If you're interested in spaces, talking in spaces, practicing your public speaking skills, doing things like interviews and things, we welcome everybody to join the Exposium. We're here working on X to make spaces better places, and the invitation's open. It is linked in my profile, so just join up. Thank you for listening, and appreciate you having me. It's been a fun interview. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.